So I was one of the founding members of the group. The original group was Bob Culbertson, Bob Cooper, and myself. We were all teachers at a music store called Guitar Showcase. And we took a map and we put a compass right in the middle of that map and we drew 5-mile radius outside of that map. And we figured within 5 miles of the store, any music venue or also any high school music department would know of the store. So we would contact high school music departments, tell them that we had these newly invented instruments, and we would go out and show the instrument. And we started playing together, and it became a band. Quickly we understood that we were doing something that was really unique, and people were loving what was going on. So we started turning that into a group, writing originals, and the next thing we knew, we were out performing, and almost immediately, everywhere we played, it was a packed house.
I went to high school in a local area here, I mean just a couple miles away from here. Jim and Bob came and played the stick at lunch. I was in awe of the stick at that point. It just shocked me what these two guys were doing with, I mean, it was two guys, right? And so later when I had the chance to work with Stickband, I said, yeah, I want to do that. I want to work with you guys.
We just said, let's make a band and play 2 sticks, or one person will play stick and the other person will play guitar, or vice versa. So that's how actually the origin of the band started.
So when I was listening to Bob Culbertson and Jim Bruno play stick, I thought, you know, this is jazz fusion. You know, I hear this sound, and at that time that was a very popular style, and it's what I wanted to do. It was very energetic, lent itself to the style of playing that I had at that time. When I watched Jim and Bob play the stick, the counterpoint, much like a piano player, you know, being able to play in unison or in opposing rhythmic or tonal patterns, I really got turned on by that, and it allowed me to try some things on my drum kit that were unconventional at the time.
We would work parts out where maybe somebody was primarily on the lower end, and then maybe I would play some higher notes on the bass part. I wouldn't go quite as low as he did. Or I would offset my parts. The lead, the melody side was a lot easier because that's basically like 2 guitar players. Maybe one person's playing a chord in a rhythm, and another person's playing a lead and maybe a little bit of an accompaniment on the left hand.
You know, I would lay down a pocket groove for Bob and Jim, and then they would lay down some solid stick playing for me to play rhythmically interesting over the top of what they were doing.
People that didn't know what the stick was, it was hard for them to understand. They're like, well, where's the bass player? Well, the bass player is right there. There's 2 of them, you know.
You know, as far as 2 sticks playing together, I get asked a lot. People go, well, you have 2 basses. Doesn't that conflict? So we're starting at the bass part. Number one, it's a fairly percussive instrument. So therefore, in some ways, the basses tend not to conflict as much because of the attack of the notes. We would work parts out where maybe somebody was primarily on the lower end, and then maybe I would play some higher notes on the bass part. I wouldn't go quite as low as he did. Or I would offset my parts. The lead, the melody side was a lot easier because that's basically like 2 guitar players. Maybe one person's playing a chord in a rhythm, and another person's playing a lead and maybe a little bit of an accompaniment on the left hand. So the nature of the instrument allows 2 instruments to be played together because it is percussive. It's not like 2 Fender bass players trying to play together. And you just sort of have to work the parts out.
That inspired me to do some of the things I was doing. We were always, as you say, playing off one another, but we were more pushing one another. It was more like we were encouraging one another to look over the next horizon musically and try to grasp or find or discover, that new, unique way of expressing ourselves musically on our instruments.
In the early days, me and Jim sometimes would get together on 2 sticks or a stick and a guitar. Then we would write, and then Bob Cooper would, we'd have him play the drum parts, or Don Tillian later.
I worked rhythm patterns melodically around my kit in rotational patterns, either right to left or left to right, independence, left and right. And it took a lot of work, a lot of study, many hours of practice to pull off some of the things we were doing.
As far as songwriting goes, sometimes I would go home and I'd have an idea on guitar or stick, and I'd say, hey, check this out. Let's see if we can make something out of it. Sometimes other individuals in the group would do that, especially in the later versions when there was Rob who played keyboard, or various people who played other instruments. There was sometimes in rehearsals where somebody might start with an idea, and then the other person go, hey, I like that, but say Bob Cooper go, I'm going to play this drum part, and he might play a certain rhythm that might inspire me or Jim or somebody to follow that and play it. So sometimes songs were sort of written together, and a lot of times it was a matter of one individual bringing a song to the group. So the unique part in the camaraderie was sort of through the fact that we had all these odd ideas that we were trying to do, and we were sharing the same kind of a vision of trying to get it out there. And yet we were so like Spinal Tap, like, the movie, where things would a lot of times just be a little left of center, not quite working properly, and that was kind of what was fun about it in a way.
I always felt like all four of the band members, Bob, Jim, Mike, and Michael, it's like family.
Every version of the band has been a lot of fun. Every version of the band has been a new adventure, and that's in meeting the people as well. Starting with Jim and Bob Cooper, of course, that's the original three, and we had a very close relationship. Jim, of course, was the person that we formed the band together, and we went through different drummers and different players and all that. Ray, came in. He was the first guy that he was a singer. That was sort of the very beginning of just trying to sing together. He was a drummer that sang, and I actually sang a little bit. Hope that's not on tape anywhere. No, I'm just kidding. Michael, I always thought was great. He was a great singer. He was a very different individual, and he was his own person. And I more than always have respected that about him.
Michael had this voice that it was shocking, the range that man had. And a look that matched it. Mike, super solid drummer, great songwriter, just generally all really nice people to work with.
Unlike any other band I worked with in the 10 years that I had my sound company, I felt like we were part of the band, Peter and I.
Honestly, I felt really close to everybody that was ever in the band, and in different types of ways, and to this day I feel something for every person that I worked with in the group through the whole 12-year period of time.
It was a really nice shared experience that we enjoyed, and the camaraderie was awesome. We got along great. As I said, we hung out a lot together during our breaks, and enjoyed each other's company immensely.
To be creative like that, and to have the camaraderie even with the sound men and everybody that helped us and worked with us, and after the gig and talking about the next gig and all that, it was just really quite a wonderful experience. And even though, I will say this, that perhaps the group didn't go as far as a well-known level that we always kind of wanted it to be, where we're all making a living and playing larger venues, we still just loved doing it anyway. So when I look back on it, I could say, okay, maybe it didn't do that, but I wouldn't have done anything different. I think it was just a wonderful experience in my life.